bring on Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, who is the former deputy mayor of Jerusalem. Fleur, as always, thank you for taking the time to speak with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I do want to start with the breaking news that a bomb blast in Tel Aviv, now confirmed to be a terrorist attack, coming as Secretary of State Blinken was visiting Tel Aviv for these ongoing ceasefire negotiations. What can you share with us?
Well, unfortunately, we're not new to suicide bombings. In 2001, just after Israel offered Arafat everything he said he wanted to create a two-state solution, we were met with a slew of suicide bombs in Jerusalem, in cafes and in buses, anywhere where there was a lot of people. It's actually a method, a very well-known method of terror by the Palestinians. And unfortunately, we see a return of that with what happened. We were very, very lucky, or providence from God, that the actual detonator exploded before he got to the destination where he wanted to kill a lot of people, killing him and injuring a passerby, as you said. And honestly, this could have ended up very badly. But again, this is the same pattern. Every time that we have negotiations for peace, every time that we have negotiations for a ceasefire, there's always these extremists who want to essentially, boycott or want to disrail the any type of negotiations for a ceasefire for peace. And Hamas have claimed responsibility. So on the one hand, we're supposed to be negotiating with Hamas, and on the other hand, we have a suicide bomber in one of our main cities.
And I wanted to ask you about that. We were hearing live from David Mencer, the Israeli government spokesperson, talking about the tactics by Hamas, trying to really derail these ceasefire negotiations. As Secretary of State Blinken saying this really might be the last opportunity. What do you make of that phrasing?
Well, I think that Secretary Blinken is correct in the sense that the longer we wait, the less chance that the hostages can survive. Some hostages are elderly people. Some hostages are women that we know for sure have been sexually assaulted. And so we know that the clock is ticking for a ceasefire deal. We know the longer we wait, the more at risk the lives of the hostages become. And so we have a moral imperative to bring back the hostages, but at the same time, we cannot allow a situation where Hamas can rearm and do another massacre within the next year or 2 years. That would be lunacy. And so we're trying to find a balance between bringing back our hostages, which of course, Sinwar, the head of the snake, is surrounding himself with hostages so that he guarantees his own life. And on the other hand, you can't have a situation where Hamas can rearm and do this again. They are not making any pretense of the fact that they want to do this again. This is not the beginning of a negotiation to bring peace, to bring a two-state solution, to bring coexistence, to bring calm. Hamas has got one objective, and that is the destruction of the state of Israel. But Hamas is only an arm of Iran, who have a much wider and more ambitious objective, and that is turning the free world into an Islamist caliphate. And so Israel is just the first stop in a much wider conflict. And I really pray that people can understand that the conflict here is much wider than Hamas-Israel. It's essentially Islamic fundamentalism against the free, liberal, democratic world.
And that's been a very large concern for a number of countries, worried that this could lead to a larger regional conflict. Going back to the ceasefire negotiations, Hamas refusing even to attend these discussions, attend these talks. Given that, is it realistic to think that some deal might be brokered?
Well, exactly. I'm not sure. Blinken remains positive. President Biden remains positive, but they're not even there. They're not even showing up. So unless Qatar is a complete conduit to Hamas, the terrorist state, and then everybody should really be reevaluating their relationships and their business relationships and the influence that Qatar have on the free world, or they really can bring about this deal. Look, I pray the hostages come home. I pray we get to a deal where we really can see calm and peace. I want to remind everybody that Israel left Gaza in 2005 and left it to the Palestinian leadership. They could have made a beautiful strip of Mediterranean land into Dubai, into the south of France, and instead they've turned it into a terrorist arm of Iran. And so I hope and I pray that the people, the Palestinian people, want a better life for themselves, want a better future for themselves, want peace and prosperity. But prosperity will come when they understand that Israel is not going anywhere. That is the beginning of a phase that we can understand that peace can come around the corner. But until the Islamic fundamentalists don't admit that Israel is here to stay, we're never going to have peace. And that really is a very depressing thought.
You were mentioning that Hamas really is just one arm of Iran and its proxies. And there really has been a lot of focus in the past number of weeks about Iran, of course, vowing revenge after the assassination of a Hamas and Hezbollah leader. In regards to what that might look like and when that may happen, given the recent events, including the U.S. sending a missile submarine to the Red Sea and publicly announcing that, do you think that the strategy from Iran has changed at all and maybe changed the timeline, as it does seem they're trying to assess what the ceasefire deal might have as an outcome?
Well, I think Iran, and this is really thanks to the American administration, the American government, that have sent all of these deterrent warnings to the Gulf to say to Iran, don't start, because this could end up badly for you. You have to understand also that 80% of the Iranian people don't want that regime. So Iran are very smart, and they know that in a war with either Israel or America, they will lose because their own people want Israel and America to liberate them. We're talking about a regime that imprisons and kills women showing a strand of hair. It is a Handmaid's Tale in real life. That's Iran right now. They, imprison journalists, dissidents, LGBTQ. That's Iran. And the fact that the world is not sending out shock and horror and marches for a regime change in Iran, and yet there are marches supporting Hamas, tells you how much of a brainwash the Western world has gone through by Hamas and by Qatar, who are one of their sponsors.
Fleur, as we continue to follow these rapid developments in the Middle East, is there anything in particular that you're keeping a very close eye on or particularly concerned about?
Well, I'm concerned. As a mother, I'm concerned for the hostages, because I think everyone in Israel feels like it's their child in there. What would we do? What wouldn't we do to release your child? And so I pray and I beg the world to imagine for 1 second that their child at a music festival, their child sleeping in their bed, were taken from you and put in a dungeon under threat to their lives. What would you want your government to do to bring your child home? And that's all Israel wants. The minute the hostages are returned, there's a ceasefire. And that is what everybody has to understand.
Fleur, as always, we do appreciate you taking the time to join us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thank you so much.
And we do continue to follow the breaking news.